Alright, so with the Imaginary Theater event we just got in 4.7 in Genshin, we got lots of details about the Hexenzirkel, some missing members potentially, and a very interesting story. Also, it was revealed that there's a secret study hidden within the library in the Knights of Avonia's headquarters, which gives me a lot more validation for this video I made about 5 months ago talking about Lisa and her connections with the Hexenzirkel. We're going to be going over all of that in this video. I will be talking about the Little Witch and the Undying Fire, what that book is potentially talking about. It's a pretty complicated, convoluted book, but I've read it many times now, but I think I have a pretty good grasp of what it's actually talking about. But first, let's talk about this room and what's going on here. What is this secret room? And who wrote this book? Well, to me, it seems pretty obvious with all the Easter eggs we got within this new room, and the Hexenzirkel cutscene giving Easter eggs to 6 different witches, one being Anders' daughter, nicknamed M, who is the author of The Boar Princess and other really renowned books in Teyvat. This is clearly her study, but her, along with Ivanova, who is nicknamed J, those 2 witches are both deceased. However, we know Ivanova had an apprentice or successor, Scarlet, and it's clear to me that Lisa is the successor of Anders' daughter. That just makes total sense even more now than ever. So let's break that down really quickly. Alice is codenamed A, and obviously Klee will be her successor. Barbara Luth, codenamed B, Mona will be her successor. Rhine-daughter, who is one of the 5 sinners of Conria, codename R, and obviously Albedo, being so renowned with alchemy and his studies, will be her successor, all of which are in Mondstadt so far if you didn't notice. Nicole, codenamed N, who we had a little bit of dialogue with in Fontaine, again Ivanova, who's deceased, Anders' daughter, codename M, who's deceased, and then 2 unknown witches who I think were discussed in this book, which we're going to talk about in this video in a second. But usually their codenames line up with the names of the actual witch, except for Anders' daughter and Ivanova. Anders' daughter has the codename M, and the little scene we got with her shows a book, a pen with a feather, and a little desk with the rose on the book, who is not only a renowned witch, but an exceptional and one of the greatest authors in Teyvat. But unlike some of the other members who have longer lifespans like Alice, M did not have a long lifespan, and was described as the legend that never ends for her stories. Loved having tea parties, but left many amazing stories, so her legacy will live on. Most of these stories have a bit of foreshadowing for the actual game's plot and main story. Some of the very cryptic behind the scenes things. I would not be surprised if she wrote The Pale Princess and the 6 Pygmies, a book that Lisa aggressively pursued to get back in her possession, and was stolen by the Abyss Order. Now, obviously we know the Abyss Order teased Lisa.
Who are you? Since you insist on concealing your identity?
So obviously if you look at the references to this mage Anders' daughter, M, and you look at this new room we got with the Imaginary Theater, this is clearly her secret study within the library in the Knights of Avonius. That is so blatantly obvious. And she has her own little concierge, Wolfie, who assists people that come here, and even the event and new endgame content itself has to do with going into a storybook and doing different challenges. But the reason I think Anders' daughter's codename is M is because I think her last name is Mincy. That is a name within Mondstadt that is not commonly talked about or known. We know all the other backstories like Kaya, Diluc, Jean, Amber, Eula, but for some reason Lisa's backstory and lineage isn't really talked about. We know her last name is also Mincy, but we don't know anything about her or her family, and this is completely intentional. Obviously, I think Lisa is the successor of Anders' daughter and is probably taking her place as a Hexenzirkel witch. I think Lisa is an apprentice of Anders' daughter, but is much more farther along in her training than maybe Mona, Klee, or Scarlet. Lisa went to the Sumeru Academia and was one of the most renowned students they've ever seen. But ironically, she had enough foresight not to dabble within forbidden knowledge, because she obviously knew the consequences, and knew the dangers of learning these secrets. Lisa literally is littered with roses on her design and even her idol animation. She also has a passion for books, she's the librarian, she's fairly easygoing and pretty much is the confidant for Jean and anyone that needs their problem solved to go to Lisa. She has the answers for everything, but she kind of plays it off. The Abyss Mage already told us she has a secret identity. She's already a trained and renowned witch in her own right. The Mincy family's not talked about on purpose. Her purple lantern, which also links her to the Hexenzirkel. So obviously what I'm saying is that Lisa is the new Hexenzirkel witch that took over Anders' daughter's role. She is her successor, and now keeps tabs on the library and this secret hidden study of Anders' daughter within the Knights of Avonius' headquarters and the library. This new place we can go to for endgame content. Clearly Lisa has been trained to continue either her masters or maybe it's like her mother or grandmother. We don't really even know their actual connection, but clearly they're connected. Which, if you think about it, makes this whole scene with the Abyss Mage back in 1.0 make so much more sense. Why she fiercely sought out this book, and why the Abyss Mage hinted at her secret identity. Lisa is probably a Hexenzirkel witch successor of M. What does it have to do with this book? Well, obviously I'm assuming that Anders' daughter wrote this book, and this book sort of tells the tale of the Hexenzirkel. But also, which witch is it talking about when it talks about the little witch in training? Because it could mean a lot of things. It could be talking about Lisa's training to become a witch through her master's words. It could be talking about La Senora. Maybe she was being groomed to be a witch among this group, but we know what happened to her, how she turned her body into liquid flame through her grief, started killing monsters, and became the Crimson Witch of Flames. This book talks a lot about demon gods, which could be archons. I mean, archons do have demon names after all. There's a lot of little ways you can interpret this book. But here's what I actually think they're talking about. I think this book and the little witch in training is talking about Alice, Klee's mother, the most renowned of the Hexenzirkel witches that we know of. And the old witch in this book was her teacher or master. Because Alice has a long lifespan, it would make a lot of sense. Because I know the title in the book, The Undying Flame, really links it to La Senora and makes people think it's about her, but I really actually think it's about Alice. I'm going to summarize this book the best I can in the simplest terms because it is very convoluted. Essentially, it's about a little witch that goes on different trials to become a true witch. Obviously, I'm assuming this organization of the Hexenzirkel's been around a long time. This little witch comes across a fortune teller, and this fortune teller gives her a crystal ball that will guide her. This could be subliminal for the Philosopher's Stone or something else entirely, but either way, this kind of actually explains why Alice has so much foresight and has so much knowledge about everything. I mean, she MacGyvered the whole Golden Apple Archipelago vacation twice, and I don't think she was even there to do it. I don't even think she's in the world of Teyvat right now. We're gonna get into that in a second. This group of witches want to kill the Demon Kings. Now, again, what are the Demon Kings? Are they the Archons? Are they Descenders? Honestly, I don't know for sure, but I think it's the Shades and the Primordial one. Obviously, I think they're talking about Celestia. So this witch, who I think is Alice, goes on a mission and trials to kill the Demon Kings. And apparently in this book it states many times, the more Demon Kings you kill, the stronger you get. And she succeeded in killing them all and becoming ultra powerful, which Alice actually is. But she still never discovered the Undying Fire, which she totally intended to do until she got called back by another witch named Octavia, who we haven't heard about yet, which could be one of the two missing witches. And basically this new witch Octavia says that the stars in the world is dying, the cosmos will die soon. Basically, it's very cryptic, but is Teyvat on the brink of collapse? Is this to do with the false sky in the world that is Teyvat? Does this have something to do with the greater Honkai universe and where Teyvat actually sits within that? So many questions. To summarize, basically Octavia says, it doesn't matter about the Undying Flame anymore, whatever you're searching for, because everything's ending. It's all collapsing. And then sometime after this, the young witch discovers that the old witch is actually the star of the Scorpio. So the little witch takes the old witch's flame and travels across the universe to spread the light across every corner of that universe. Essentially, we have not seen Alice yet in the game. She's off doing God knows what. I'm assuming she's off spreading that light right now. I think Octavia is probably one of the missing 8 witches that we didn't get shown yet, and the other missing witch is probably the old witch referred to in this book, or the teacher of Alice. At least that's how I see it, because there are 2 witches that we have no idea about. And that is the best interpretation I can come up with this book. But again, it's very convoluted and very vague. And I actually just made a video talking about Venti's possible connections with Istaroth, the god and shade of time, which is nothing new to discuss. That's been discussed a long time in Genshin, but Isn't it odd that if the Shades are the demon gods in this story, and the Hexenzirkel had a run-in with Venti, who might be linked to that shade, there's another possible connection. And then there's Octavia's cryptic words in this book about how the universe is about to die anyway, and this cosmos and the stars are collapsing, and then N's cryptic words in Fontaine about the history of the universe. There are so many questions about these witches, and if they're trying to break the cycle of Celestia and Tevat, because Rhine-Daughter is one of these witches, so they're all associated with one sinner from Conria, that is Rhine-Daughter, and she did release a bunch of monsters throughout Tevat. Venti and Dvalin having to deal with one on Dragonspine themselves, Durin. And now that same sinner has a creation named Albedo, who is living in Mondstadt, joined the Knights of Avonius, and is help raising and being like a big brother to Klee, another witch's kid, Alice. And if you think for a second that Lisa doesn't know and isn't aware of everything in the big picture here, the false sky and all of that within Tevat, you're mistaken. There's a reason she didn't seek forbidden knowledge in Sumeru and left when she did. She saw her professors and classmates and where their curiosity was going to bring them. She knew the consequences. To this day, is very low-key about her role in the bigger picture. Genshin does a phenomenal job at making these stories that tell real-world, real Tevat problems and story arcs, but do it in a very vague, beating around the bush way that you can't really pinpoint exact characters and where they get placed within this book. It's similar to the Pale Princess and the Six Pygmies. People are still trying to pinpoint who exactly are the Pygmies, the Pale Princess, the Night Mother, and all that. But Anders' daughter is definitely the author behind these books, and Lisa is her successor, safeguarding her secret library that we now got unlocked, and the library in the Knights of Avonius. She comes off as a lazy, nonchalant librarian, but her role is so much bigger than that, and it always has been. Hinted at since day one. Again, if you want more detailed version of their connection, I did make this video. Honestly, this whole quest just kind of reinforced it, so I do feel a little validated now, but what do you think about this new endgame, this new location within Tevat and the library, and what about this book? What are your thoughts on it? I am curious to hear what you guys have to say. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.